Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for tuning in to All Things Division 3 Soccer with Simple Coach and Jackie. I am Simple Coach. That there is the Chief Dog Officer, Jackie. So really excited about today. Finally, after a month of working through players and positions and making a lot more difficult than I probably should. I finally have my best 11 men's players of Division 3, and it's actually the best 35, 4, can't remember. But I will say it was really hard, and I will say it was really hard picking one position. There were such quality ball players that it literally took me a week to pick a player for one position. So I won't go into detail. I'll just wait for when I start that segment. But hope you enjoy. Everyone who gets nominated or is on the list gets a golden Rice Krispie treat. And to celebrate the honor. With that, all right, let's get at it. So, I just can't keep things simple. So I just couldn't come up with a list of who I thought were the best players were, or just sort of accept things for what other people said. So for my best 11, best 35, but best 11, I made some simple yet pretty complex rules that I figured I would, let you all in on as to why it took me so long. So, probably the most important one, and what I've basically, this made it really difficult. I had to have watched the player at some point in the season. So, all of the players that are on this list, this best 11 list, I watched at some point, and more than likely multiple games. And obviously, depending on the team, right? I watched throughout the season. Couldn't help but watch Messiah, Chicago, right? The usual suspects. So that was a key component of. So if I didn't watch, and there's a chance that I probably missed over some great players, it could just come down to something as simple as I never really watched that particular player's team. The second thing I sort of held myself to was I wanted to come up with a realistic roster. So yes, my best 11 is 30 some odd players, but I wanted to construct it like the way I would structure a roster. So the top 11 players is a 4-3-3. So there are 4 defenders, 3 midfielders, and 3 forwards. There's no more than that. And then if you look at the rest of the players, there's sort of an equal distribution between, defenders, midfielders, and forwards, kind of like you would see as a regular roster. And let me tell you, that complicated things quite a bit. I will say, and this doesn't really apply that much here, but I never sort of looked at what their position was. To me, it was how they played. Did I like them? And I don't think any of these really apply, but, we could take a player who was a center back who loved getting forward that I thought, man, if you could get him higher up the field, that would be great. But so I would take them not maybe as a defender, but maybe as a midfielder. But so I thought of my entire list of 35 players, you could have multiple players from one school. But I tried to limit myself. I think 3 is the max. But, there are some teams that I could have just taken the whole top 11, and that just didn't feel right. So I really tried very, very hard to limit myself to what I thought were the best of each team. And I'll do a breakdown here next. The very difficult task of in the best 11, so the top 11 players, the ones that I would, man, this would be one heck of a team. I made a decision that you could only have one player per team, which makes it really, really hard when you think about teams like Chicago and Messiah. And you're limiting your number already. They have an extraordinary roster that you could pick just about anybody. So that was a steadfast one for me, because I like when people look around and see different players and acknowledgments of different players and their position and whatnot. So okay, so those were the rules. And so I just want to start with breaking it down. So if you aggregated everybody, there were a number of schools that I selected 2 players from. And it wasn't by design. It was just the way the cookie crumbled, right? So I didn't go out and say, I just want to limit, Tufts to 2 players. It just sort of how it ended up happening. So Tufts, Williams, Washington and Lee, University of Chicago, Gustavus Adolphus, and Hopkins all had 2 players, no more. And then, as it turns out, Messiah and Montclair State ended up with 3 players that are on the list. There are a total of 25 schools represented across the 35. And like I had mentioned, there's 35 players. So with that, let's start with goalkeepers. And let me tell you how hard this position was. I had 4 goalkeepers that I think are probably, from what I saw, were the best of the best. And up until yesterday, I couldn't figure out which one of those 4 was what I considered the best. And I ended up picking one goalkeeper, the best goalkeeper, by removing somebody from his team, because that would have made 2 players in the best 11, and substituting them for somebody else who I thought, you know what, that's probably a fair switch. So first up, I really like this guy, Sam Altman Farrell at Franklin and Marshall. Aggressive off his line, made some mistakes here and there that I watched, but I think his presence was large. Franklin and Marshall is thankful that they had him. He was all region. He had six shutouts. He over the last 2 seasons as a starter, he played 37 games and he had 16 shutouts, and he let in less than close to 0.78 goals a game in his career. So I and like I said, I think it was more of a presence thing, how he carried himself, did well on crosses and whatnot, and so I was really think highly of him. Next up, Jared the Mullet Pavlovich from Messiah University. I think this guy's the bomb. Great shot stopper. I think probably doesn't get enough credit for how well Messiah does. Maybe he does, but I just think he was. I just think he's just an excellent all-around goalkeeper in a lot of respects. So he's all region, allowed 0.56 goals average, only allowed 10 goals all season. So pretty remarkable goalkeeper. And then lastly, Wesley Sanders, a senior from Gustavus Adolphus. He's a second-team All-American, MIAC Defensive Player of the Year, top keeper in his region. and he was third in Division III and with 12 shutouts, and he started, I think, all but one game. Remarkable goalkeeper. Great shot stopper. And again, another one where you could just see, and it's probably his seniority, right? All three of these guys are seniors. Like he always struck me as a reference point for the rest of the team. So the leadership aspect is remarkable. So, all right. So those are just three regular goalkeepers, not the best 11. So that I had to choose from, which was, like I said, really hard. So these are the defenders that didn't make my top 11. Griffin Wada, I'm a huge fan, and this was one where it's like, could I break my own rule and have, two University of Chicago center backs, because I think they're the best in the country together. But he's a first team All Region, first team All UAA, NCAA All Tournament team, NCAA most outstanding defensive player of the tournament. Just an outstanding central defender. Has the height, the intelligence, and the ball skill. Another one I'm a big fan of is grad student Tim Trinan from Johns Hopkins University, second team All-American, and he was a Centennial Conference Defensive Player of the Year in a very, very, very tough conference. My favorite right back of all, Luke Mother, Kenyon University, All Region, and like I said, he probably didn't have quite the season he may have hoped. But I just think his work on the right is a sight to behold. Okay. Next up is Nick Boardman, a senior from Williams College. It's all NESCAC, all region, third team All-American, national runner-up, and he scored the game-winning goal against University of Mary Washington. I think he was probably the most dynamic player that Williams had, and I think there's three players. One I'll mention in a little bit. Nick Boardman, who I just think is stellar. And then I really liked freshman Cole Moriello, just because I think he was the only one who sort of had what I thought was any vision of the game and whatnot. But yeah. So, but he, to me, their success was driven largely because of a guy like him, who I just think carried a lot of the team and the enthusiasm and the discipline to defend as hard as they did. So, Dylan Reed, a senior from Bowdoin College, first team All-American, first team All-Region, NESCAC Men's Soccer Player of the Year. I just can't say enough about this guy. From a defensive standpoint, I mean, he is largely responsible for a lot of the success that Bowdoin had. Another senior, Ian Bluff from Cortland State. He was the SUNYAC Co-Defensive Player of the Year. And again, for a team that had as much style as Cortland State and as much as they had going forward, I think they don't get as far as they do without a guy like Ian in the back. So, okay, next up is Isaac Coleman of John Carroll University. Can't say enough about Isaac. I think what I like the most is he's probably the most intelligent defensive player that I watched all year. Really, I think his value was that he was able to cut off a lot of attack on John Carroll, and I love seeing that sort of thing, because I think defensively sometimes we get caught in the notion that we have to win every ball at when the player has it, and I think he actually does the smarter thing, which is tries to break up plays before they could develop. So think the world of him, and definitely worthwhile. Okay, so let's go to the midfielders. I'm going to go with Carter Thiesfield, at Wisconsin Eau Claire. He's a sophomore. He's an all-region. He led Division III in total assists with 23, and that was 6 better than anyone in the country. And obviously, Eau Claire's success this year is largely attributable to number of players, but in particular Carter. So another favorite of mine, holding mid, Giancarlo Altamirano from Montclair State. I've said this before. I think Montclair State, player for player, probably has the best individual players in the country, and I think he's at a different level. So even though he's worked through some injuries, I just think he's a rock in the middle for Montclair. Now, my only freshman of the total list is Danny Yanez from Tufts University. He had 3 goals, 1 assist. I think I like the fact that he's a firecracker, and he's not afraid to go at defenders. I think he does have some youth things that he has to sort out, like, sometimes he can become a black hole with the ball, but I think even as a freshman, he was a threat, and really was able to unbalance a lot of defenses just by his desire to get forward. So another one, 2-timer here, Steve Jonas from Connecticut College. He was second team all region, and he had 4 goals, 4 assists. I think his total career, he had 16 goals and 12 assists. And I just think he's a workhorse in the middle. And despite Connecticut College not necessarily having the season that they wanted, I think he was most definitely deserving of the award. I just still think he's one of the best players in the country. Another one of the best in the country, Victor Gallman at St. Olaf University. All-American, all-region, all-MIAC tournament, and 11 goals and 6 assists. I just think this kid is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, deserving of the honor. Okay, next up, midfielder Oliver Akintande from Calvin University, one of my favorite guys from last year, this year. He's a junior. Second team All-American, and he was all-region first team, 11 goals, 3 assists. He's definitely dynamic on the attack, and quickness, and his ability with the ball is definitely makes him a rarity. After that, the first of 2 Washington and Lee players, Michael Kutsinzira. He is a senior, first team All-American, all-region, 9 goals and 10 assists. And his teammate, also on the list, Sam Bass, Washington Lee, senior, third team All-American, all-region, 8 goals, 11 assists. Between these two, they made Washington Lee the power that it is. I mean, these guys are just they are the spear to the tip, right? They pretty much lead the Generals on the attack, and so. Okay, so on to forwards, right? Because that's what Jack is barking about. And the garbage guy. First up, Matt McDonald, Messiah University. Need I say more? D3 Player of the Year, 23 goals and 6 assists. I know. You're saying why him here rather than on the 11, and I'll explain. But just an outstanding forward. I mean, quick, lightning quick, great with the ball. Has this uncanny ability of getting around the guys on the outside and turning them and taking the ball down the line. Just great ball player. Another one of my favorites from last year and this year, Josiah Crawford, one of the 3 players. This is one of the 3 players from Montclair State. He is an all-region, 8 goals, 3 assists. Fantastic winger. Great with the ball, great vision, not afraid to go at guys. Really a handful when you have to defend against them. Out at Otterbein College, don't hold that against them. Senior Will Isaac, all region, OAC Forward of the Year, 16 goals, 5 assists. I think our Otterbein success largely rests with his production over the last couple of years. Great forward, great skill with the ball, really able to deal with guys in short space, in tight spaces. So, another, I really enjoyed watching him, and he actually looks like he has a lot of fun with the ball. Another winger, Ada Akarogi. Yeah, I think I said that right. At Amherst Junior, first team All-American, All-Region, All-NESCAC, 3 goals, 4 assists. And when Amherst got the attack going, it was largely coming from this guy. Like he could take anybody on either wing, really go at guys, really take them to the line, get around them, and do all that damage that he showed throughout the season. Really enjoyed this guy too, Adam Silva, grad student, Stevens Institute of Technology. He's a MAC Freedom Offensive Player of the Year, 4 goals, 4 assists, and he's a 3-time All-Region selection. Again, another fantastic player on the wing. Really, I like to think of him more like the midfielder type winger, where when he gets the ball, he could do damage if he has the space, but also just his ability to put the ball where it needs to be for somebody else. So. And that's largely why I selected him, to give me a sort of a dynamic of all these guys, a different dynamic, different look. And then finally, Lucas Fecci of Oneonta Senior. What do I got to say about this guy? He led the team, 14 goals, 5 assists. An outstanding forward, like in the classic mold. Really good holding defenders up, really good ball at his feet, tight spaces, and opportunistic, and definitely deserves the nod. So, okay, so that was the best of the best, right? Like that was the group that when I picked the best 11, I could only come up with 35. So. And I will say this, right? Like when you look at these guys, this roster, it could be preference. It could be however you think about the game. It could be like you could totally see any of these guys as the best 11. Like it's like margins, like razor thin margins. And that's where I think I struggled, right? Like I think this year, as opposed to last year when I did this the first time, I think I was just surprised at how talented this group was and how tight. Like I mean, It was like needed a therapist to talk about some of this stuff, like just how close. And one day I'd wake up and it'd be like, hey, I'm going to choose this guy. And then on the next day I'd be like, no, this guy. It just became totally psychotic. So, all right. So with that, drum roll, please. Jackie's all ready, as you can see, perched. This is who I considered, as of today, the best 11 soccer players in Division III in the country, based on, again, my rules. So, all right. So let me talk about the goalkeepers, because the first one up is a goalkeeper. So I picked 4, which was unheard of. So I got the 3 that I mentioned earlier, and then I had a 4th. And for probably 10 days or maybe 15 days, a long time, all 4 were in this category, and I didn't have who I thought was the best goalkeeper because I couldn't decide. And so finally, I was just kind of like, you know what? I'm just going to go with the one who I think probably had a little bit more, went a little bit further in the tournament, who I liked and who I thought was much more, so like razor thin margin. So I went with Ben Too Tall Diffley from Williams College. And how I did that was, that's how I ended up I put him in because it did the least amount of damage to the rest of the 11. But I could have easily gone with Wesley Sanders, Sam Altman, or Jared the Mullah Pavlovich. But I just, there's something about him that there was just sort of unquantifiable that I couldn't capture. So, look, outstanding season. He only allowed half a goal a game, 8 shutouts, obviously made the finals. Think his command of the box. I liked how he was a little bit more thoughtful and not reckless about coming out for balls. I'm a big believer in that. You shouldn't be always yelling goalkeeper to come and get you on high balls. I think you need defenders to do their job sometimes, and I think it's not always the right thing for goalkeepers to go out. I know, crazy, sorry. But I just think all around this guy was just fantastic. Next up, defender, another one of my favorites, Ian Daly at Tufts University's all NESCAC. I just think he's probably, again, as an attacking defender, as an outside back, I just think I dare to argue on the left, he's probably the best outside defender, at least in my estimation. So, like I mentioned, all NESCAC, second year in a row. He had couple goals, couple assists, and yeah. So just a fan. And again, I think one of the highlights to the Tufts team, which I think had, I think he was the most consistent throughout. So next up, this guy's the bomb. Could have been Griffin Wada. If I didn't have these rules, like I could have easily put Griffin Wada and Richard Gillespie together, or I could have just used Griffin Wada. But Richard, he is absolutely, and having watched him in person at the semis, and I just think he is by far the best central back in the country by a lot. And not only that, but he's not afraid to get forward. And I think that's where I was sort of struck between Gillespie and Wada, like who is what. And I thought Wada was a better holding, and I kind of like Gillespie sort of having this freedom to get up and do his thing on the attack, and which made him so lethal, especially back post balls, or going for him. He was just really good in the air. So he's a first team All-American, first team All-Region. he had 2 goals, 3 assists. He's first team All UAA, and he was the NCAA on the NCAA All Tournament team. So just an outstanding ball player. Another one that I couldn't help be impressed with, Hamilton Estrada at Trinity. I think he's actually a CDM, but I think his defensive abilities are outrageous. And I think their success, St. Thomas's success, is largely in part because he's such a good defensive player, and stopping plays and stopping to get forward, and just really makes that back line really solid. So, and then lastly, last defender, Otis Anderson Jr. from Gustavus Adolphus. I think this is probably, and maybe doesn't get enough attention, I don't know, but is probably one of the best one-on-one defenders that I've watched. Really smart, doesn't dive in, never gets caught, yeah, and another one who likes to get forward. I think all these guys aren't afraid to get forward. Maybe Hamilton's a little bit more conservative, but another one who doesn't mind getting forward, getting into the attack, getting into the midfield. So, okay, next up, midfielders. Love this kid. Another sophomore, Ian Wamond, Johns Hopkins. He's all region for the second straight team. He had 6 assists, and I think he was ranked second in points in the country. So, or on the team, maybe. I think it's on the team. But remarkable ball player, really coming down that leftish side. I thought he was really great control of the ball. I think he's really good in tight spaces. And again, when he's coming from the midfield, he's really dangerous and sort of dislodging the defenders because they have to deal with them. So, okay. So my Messiah pick, as opposed to Matt McDonald, is Luke Grudhoff of Messiah University. Sadly, a senior. I don't know if he has more eligibility. Would love to watch him. He's an All-American in all region. I am going to say that if he scored more goals, I think he is player of the year. And in fact, I would say he is probably, in my estimation, the best center midfielder in the country. And I would say he's probably, this year's version was probably the best center midfielder in the last 2 years that I've sort of been tuned into D3 soccer. As I mentioned, All-American, all-region. His ability. I don't think you can underestimate how much control he had over the tempo of Messiah when they had the ball. So he was that unique guy who through the way he played, he was able to sort of dictate at what points does Messiah attack, at what points do they hold the ball and stay in possession. And I would argue that the game they lost to Williams in penalty kicks, I think, again, I don't think it was his best game, but I think Williams did a masterful job of shutting him down, which then basically let Matt McDonald and the rest of the attack sort of on their own, and it got really difficult to get them the ball. And I think that was the key where I thought this guy is my player of the year. So, all right, I've said enough about. I love this kid. Like, seriously, like he would be video. You know, if you're trying to teach somebody how to play midfield, like that's the guy that you would want. So, all right. Another one of my favorites. I just love this kid, Marvin Sabanda, senior at St. Lawrence University, All-American, All-Region, Liberty League Player of the Year for second season in a row. At 11 goals, 6 assists. Special player. Again, loves being on the attack, whereas I think Grudhoff, the way I look at it in a 4-3-3, and this was sort of my thinking, is Wamond and Sabanda would be sort of more like your outside outsider mids, and then Grudov would be in the middle. But Sbando is just really, really technical, great vision. And again, another one who really has a control of the ball that you don't see very often. Okay, next up, love this kid, Darius Siapush at Catholic University, senior, second team All-American All-Region, 2-time Landmark Offensive Player of the Year. I think he was the best player on Catholic by far, the most creative, the most imaginative, the one who actually had a soccer IQ. For a team largely that was a little bit more like a hammer than I would like, but his ability, especially when he would be on the left and then cut in, I thought he was just really, really good, and he has this uncanny knack of floating to find the space, and then when he got the ball there, you knew he had time. And I think Catholic success, I would say, is largely rests on a really good defensive posture of their back four and their goalkeeper. But I would say, scoring goal wise, and Jackie's agreeing with me, I think it rests solely on his shoulders. So, okay, next up, the last of two. Again, how this guy wasn't an All-American, I don't know. Marcos Villa, senior at Luther College, 16 goals for the Nors. He was all-region first team. He was all-conference, and he was the American Rivers Conference offensive MVP. I watched this kid, and he's a different level. Like, seriously, great with both feet. Really knows where to pick his spots. Got a rifle of a shot, just and a nose for goal. And again, sort of knows when to pick and choose when to go forward or when to control or when to sort of move the ball. And I just think the world of this kid. And yeah. And then finally, the other one who I will confess, I'm not sure he had as good of a season as he did his freshman year. Another sophomore, Amir Lukovic, Montclair State. This is a Division I player, if you ask me. Like, he is second team All-American All-Region. He had 11 goals, 1 assist. He is the best center, I think, the best center forward in the country. Just ability, really knows how to deal with traffic. I remember talking to I remember talking about him and how a team defended him, and they basically surrounded him with 4 guys to prevent him from getting the ball. And when he did, so that all 4 could collapse on him. Like, that's how good he is. But the problem is that when you do that, who do you free? You free like a guy like Josiah Crawford, like to run roughshod. So really, really great ball player. So this is my best 11, the best 11 of the 35 names that I ran through. And I, like I said, all these guys get golden Rice Krispie treats as their award. Really difficult to choose who even the best 35 were. The amount of, I beat myself up trying to figure these out, but yeah, I would be satisfied to step out on the field against any collegiate team with that lineup. I think we would have a go, and it would be fun. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed my take on the best 11 ball players in Division III men's soccer. Really enjoyed doing it. Really realized like the quantity of great ball players out there, and that are deserving of accolade. And I wish I had time, energy to look at all of the players that I'm sure that I missed. But if there are those players, by all means, shoot them down below. Would love to take a look at them and maybe come up with the afterthoughts in a few months if if I can watch some videos. So that includes University of Rochester players, because I don't have to go through a paywall all the time. So maybe I could watch them. Anyhow, wish you and your families a blessed and Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. I just wish the best of this joyous season, and to you and your family. Thank you for all the support. This will probably be my last video of 2022, I hope, and sort of disconnect from YouTube for a little bit. But I'll be back at it in the new year, as I have 4 or 5 actual simple coach to coach interviews that are scheduled. So okay, all the best, and I'll see you on the flip side. If you like this show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. You can also find me on anti-social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks. This is a message from my Chief Marketing Officer. I think this keeps him happy.